CNN has learned the White House has fired multiple administration officials after the president met with a well-known far-right activist.
That's right. That activist is Laura Loomer, who you see there in red. She was seen there at the White House yesterday greeting Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Very much so there. CNN's Elena Treen outside the White House for us. Elena, your sources say Loomer urged Trump to terminate these employees. Can you tell us who they are, why they were let go?
Yeah, she actually went in, I was told, to the West Wing with a list of around a dozen names and urged President Donald Trump to fire them. A lot of this was more about loyalty tests and whether or not these people had the president's best interests at heart, at least from her point of view. Now, this was first reported by the New York Times, but what we've learned since is that the White House has actually moved forward with firing multiple administration officials. At least 3 national security staffers were also on that list. And look, it's interesting because we know that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, he was actually meeting with the president in the Oval Office before Loomer had entered the West Wing and came in to meet with him. So he ended up staying back, and he was there while she was doing this, while she was telling him how many of the staffers who served beneath him, including his principal deputy secretary, his deputy secretary, Alex Wong, saying that he was too hawkish, that he wasn't loyal as well. So a very interesting meeting. And I want to give you just a little bit of context on Loomer, because she's someone, as you mentioned, she's a far-right activist. She's actually someone who had a lot of access to the president while he was on the campaign trail. We did a story last fall about how she had traveled with President Donald Trump to a 9/11 memorial, something that actually caused a lot of consternation within his inner circle. And she's been complaining in recent weeks as well that she hasn't had enough access to the West Wing. But yesterday, of course, we know now that she has met with him. And I'm told as well that the president actually moved forward with a lot of these firings because of her urging of him to do so. Now, I did speak with Loomer as well. I want to read you just a bit of the statement she sent me. She confirmed that she had met with him and said, out of respect for President Trump and the privacy of the Oval Office, I'm going to decline on divulging any details. But she went on to say that it was an honor to, quote, present him with my findings. I will continue working hard to support his agenda, and I will continue reiterating the importance of strong vetting for the sake of protecting the president and our national security. So you can hear there how she's clearly saying that she believes that people somehow got into the National Security Council without really being as loyal to the president as we know that, many of these people who were actually vetted by Sergio Gore, the head of the Presidential Personnel Office. She's arguing that they weren't that loyal, and now we're seeing many of them actually get fired. Boris, Brianna.
All right, Elena Treen, thank you for the report.
Following more breaking news now, sources tell CNN the White House fired at least 3 National Security Council staffers after a far right-wing conspiracy theorist told the president they are, quote, disloyal. One source says these terminations were a direct result of Laura Loomer's meeting with President Trump yesterday. Now, it is important to note that Loomer is a far-right activist who has gone deep into conspiracy theory land. Just one example, she claimed that 9/11 was an inside job. Now, she told CNN that she wouldn't comment on the meeting. CNN's Caitlin Collins and Katie Bo-Lillis are part of the CNN team that is reporting on this story. So, Caitlin, let me first start with you. People who watch a show called Inside Politics are probably very familiar with Laura Loomer as an individual. Also probably familiar with the fact that during the campaign there was controversy and she was asked not to be back on Air Force One. How did this happen that she got back into the inner circle?
Yeah, on the campaign trail, she actually had pretty good proximity to President Trump when he was outside of the White House. She traveled with him to the 9/11 memorial on the anniversary, even though, as you noted, she posted a video once that said that 9/11 was an inside job. And she has been complaining publicly that she has not had nearly as much access.
Exactly.
She's tried to get into the press briefing room. She's publicly tweeted at White House officials complaining they weren't letting her onto the grounds. And obviously, to get onto the White House campus, you have to be cleared in by a White House staffer. You give your social security number to the Secret Service. You can't just walk into the White House. And we saw her walking out of the West Wing yesterday, and that was after she had a personal meeting with President Trump inside the Oval Office. And we've now confirmed details, first reported by the New York Times, that she met with President Trump. Michael Waltz, the national security advisor, had just had a meeting with the president. He stayed behind and was in that meeting with Laura Loomer, where she was attacking several members of his staff at the National Security Council, saying that they were not sufficiently loyal to President Trump. That includes his principal deputy right underneath him. His name is Alex Wong, and several others, and was essentially arguing that President Trump should fire them. And then she left shortly before that tariff announcement came out yesterday afternoon. And so now what we're witnessing right now is a purge is underway at the NSC with several of the names that she brought to President Trump, arguing that they should not work for him.
And this is the key, and I want you to talk about who these people are in 1 second. But the key here is people hear NSC, they work for Mike Waltz, they might think, oh, this is about Signalgate. It's not.
No, none of
Nothing
these people
to do with it. It's about loyalty.
Are related to that, from what we understand.
Loyalty.
Right, it's alleged loyalty, or the argument is that they're too hawkish, that they don't actually share the president's views on that. I mean, you can look at the Signalgate chat, and there were even disagreements with the vice president saying that he didn't believe that they should strike. And so, anyway, but on this, it is important to note that Laura Loomer is driving this. She is a far-right activist. She is someone who said that if Vice President Harris won the White House during the election, that it would smell like curry. Those were comments that were denounced by Republican allies of the president, including Vance at the time, said he disagreed with it. And so she is the one who's really driving this, and it speaks to the level of influence that
and
she
let's
has.
talk about the impact on national security, who they are, and why this matters so much for how the national security of the United States of America is run and who's doing it.
Well, what's fascinating about this is that the 3 staffers that have been fired here are outside of Washington Beltway national security circles. These are pretty anonymous people. They are foreign policy minds that have serious resumes, that have worked serious jobs on Capitol Hill, in the State Department, in think tanks. You know, these are people that are well known in national security circles because they are longtime practitioners of foreign policy, experienced in making that kind of policy. These are the people that are sort of engaged in the nitty-gritty of actually designing national security policy for the president. But they're not big public figures. You know, they're people like Brian Walsh, who was who ran intelligence programs for the White House, who formerly worked for Senator Marco Rubio when he was chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You had a senior director who worked on technology issues for the National Security Council, and you had the head of legislative affairs for the National Security Council. So again, not people that are sort of big public names that you're hearing on cable news all day long. And I think it really speaks to this kind of lesson that the president felt that he learned out of his first administration of being managed up by these faceless bureaucrats.
Thank you both for your reporting. Appreciate you being here, getting up and in a little earlier.